Yeah, now, and then as soon as I said that, it started lagging.
Achtung! The enemy has armed objective Caesar.
Grenade kill, okay. Ooh, I just missed that guy's head. Gotta run back a little bit. Hey guys, so the Battlefield 5 alpha is over, and I think I've played around 40 to 50 hours of the single map that was available during it. And the question on everybody's mind, especially the people that didn't play it, was, is it good? I would say absolutely. I had a really good time. There's obviously a lot of things that still need working on, but that's why this is a closed alpha and not the full release of the game. So let's start off with what was good. So overall, the infantry gunplay was amazing. It's probably the best gunplay that we've had since Battlefield 4. No suppression meant that if someone started firing at you, you could turn around and shoot them back and possibly win the engagement with better aim. Reduced bullet spread and no more random bullet deviation between shots meant that it felt very satisfying when aiming down sight at an enemy. And tap firing is back to a degree, but I don't feel that it's not unskillful to do that. I noticed that after a few days during the alpha, a lot of people stopped playing sniper because they found it too challenging, but it also meant that it just wasn't a sniper fest. Now that there's no more sweet spots, you no longer get randomly one-shotted across the map to a random chest shot just because they were at the right range. As I've said before, using the sniper rifle was challenging, but it felt so satisfying when you were getting those kills and being accurate. Now, I will tell you what was actually more satisfying than the gunplay, and that was not being killed by grenades, indirect damage like artillery and mortars, and also the vehicles weren't too annoying. Right now, I think that the vehicles are slightly underpowered, especially the planes. The tanks can be often taken out by one assault player on their own, but because the vehicles weren't such a massive threat, it really allowed the infantry gameplay to shine through, and everyone said that they had such a good time because they didn't have to be worrying about being one-shotted by vehicles all the time. I'm a little bit worried about whether they're going to make vehicles better, but then possibly go overboard because of how bad they were in the alpha. So hopefully in the beta they don't go too far with overpowering the vehicles just because they were underpowered previously. So obviously there's a ton of stuff that I probably won't mention because it's stuff that I liked in previous Battlefields. I already like the Battlefield series, but let's start talking about some of the feedback, some of the things I think that they could improve in the game. So first off, let's talk about the ammo attrition. So as you know, in Battlefield 5 in the alpha you spawned in with about 2 magazines, so one in your gun and one to reload. And after around one fight you've already used about 1.5 mags. So you have to find a support player or find a supply box. However, a lot of the time, obviously, as we all know, Battlefield's Battlefield, you don't always find a supply box or an ammo guy. But what you did find was corpses that had ammo on them. However, the corpses only give you around 1/4 of a magazine, or as a sniper rifle you only get one or two shots, I think it is, per pickup. I believe that this should be at least half a magazine per pickup when you pick up ammo off a corpse. Something else I didn't talk about previously was the fall damage and falling animations that punish the player for obviously falling down longer distances. Unfortunately, if you fell a long distance, not only would you take a lot of damage, but it would also force you into a landing animation. I feel that it should be one or the other. If I'm going to have a landing animation, then I should take less damage. If I'm going to have no landing animation, then I should take more damage. Because right now you fall off like a 2-story building and you take 20-30 damage and do a landing animation, and I feel it's just, they need to pick one or the other. So something that really affected the infantry combat was the sound of the footsteps, as you'd often be waiting, maybe getting your health back around a corner, and you would not hear enemies sprinting towards you unless they were almost 2 meters away, and by that time they've already seen you, they've turned on you, and they've started firing their gun, and there's no time for you to react. I feel like the footsteps should be a little bit louder, especially regarding how there's no more mini-map icons and 3D spotting is gone, so you have a very little chance of being able to react using your audio. The terrain was quite unforgiving in that you could seemingly sprint up the terrain no problem, but then as soon as you stopped to stand still and shoot, you would actually slide down the hill. This is something that's been in a lot of Battlefields, but in this one, it seemed to happen all the time where you would miss shots or end up dying and sliding down the hill. One of the most annoying things that's still back in this Battlefield, and we kind of don't really know why, is environmental fire damage or environmental damage in general. There was certain places in the houses where the damage was so severe that you could be killed in around 3 seconds by standing in the wrong place in a house just because of the environmental fire. It's too harsh. It's just not fun. I don't know why they still have that. So something that concerned me a little bit was the bullet penetration. Now they seem to have almost the same system Battlefield 1 in that thin wood would be penetrable, so like doors and things. But I shot people through doors and really light wood several times, but they've got some sort of damage reduction on. So I would hit them in the head with a sniper rifle and it would do 25 damage with a sniper rifle headshot, which would mean I'd have to shoot them 4 times in the head with a sniper rifle to kill them. So they've got some sort of strange damage reduction on bullet penetration that I feel that they need to do on a per weapon basis, because I feel like if I headshot someone through a door with a sniper rifle, it should kill them. Regardless of realism, that's just how it is. Do you know what I mean? Something else I talked about in a previous video was the head flinch whilst doing certain animations. So people that are building, their heads are nodding back and forth, it's almost impossible to hit them in the head. And also when people are sprinting and they get hit, they flail their arms around and it makes it near impossible to hit them with a follow-up shot. And whilst it looks realistic, it really doesn't help with gameplay, especially when someone else is shooting the target that you want to snipe, and then you take a shot, but their head has moved and flailed and their arms got in the way. It's something that they've removed on a lot of games after feedback. Something else that a lot of people mentioned was obviously that the snow effects were still a little bit too high, as you can see from this clip here. It makes it a little bit more difficult to pick out your targets, although it does look nice. I think a lot of people would just prefer it to be toned down to the point where it's just a background effect. Ground shake from explosions was still pretty high in this game, almost like Battlefield 1 before you could turn it down. The ground shake when you're near explosions, or when you're near the mortar, for instance, in the first level, is pretty severe. It made it near impossible to aim. And talking of the giant cannons in the first objective of ground operations, I'm not sure a lot of people knew about it, but you could actually press E on the giant artillery guns and you could use them, and it was basically like a giant mortar, and it would get 4 kills for basically just clicking a button. And after everything I said about not being killed by indirect damage, that was a really annoying thing to be killed by. You would just be running forward. The defending team already had a lot of disadvantages, but you'd just be running forward and then out of the sky, yeep, insta-dead from a guy just pressing E on a cannon. So that sort of thing is what I want to avoid. To cover some things from the previous videos that I've talked about, health regen still isn't back up to 75. I still think it was a little bit too harsh. The revive animation was extremely slow and clunky, but again, it's alpha, so hopefully they'll be adjusting that. You still can't pick up enemy kits, so if you pick up a medic kit, you only take their gun, which again is, I think, a huge, missing part of the Battlefield experience. I also felt, as I've said before, that when you die, there is such a long downtime between actually dying and not being revived and sitting there going through deploy screens until you can finally respawn. I thought that the squad spawn screen was kind of useless, because a lot of the time when you're watching your squad mate in third person, you couldn't actually tell where they were on the map, because a lot of the map looks very similar and there's no mini-map for you to know where they are. So a lot of the time I'd be watching my squad mate in third person being like, well, where are they? I'll have to go to the deploy screen to see where they actually are on the map, and they'll be like, oh right, they're at the back of the map, so I won't spawn on them. And again, going back to what I thought was the harsh health regen system. So I thought that the ammo attrition system is pretty decent as long as they think about changing how much ammo you can pick up off allies. But I think that the health regen system, where you can potentially only regen up to 40 health in some situations, can be a little bit too harsh. However, I didn't feel like my gameplay or the way that I was playing changed too much because of the health regen system. I would often be on lower health, but I wouldn't change the way I play because I just didn't need to. I was still able to perform at the same level regardless of my health. It was just a little bit more frustrating when I died because I knew I had low health. That was all. But overall, honestly, the experience was so fun. Like, I think it might have been the fact that we didn't really have to worry about the vehicles, which again is something I'm worried about, but I had such a good time with the infantry combat and the sniping and even using the other classes. The assault class may have been a bit of the dominator of all the classes. It seemed to have all of the best gear for killing infantry, but obviously it's alpha, so they will have a look at the balance and think about what they need to do there. Now, I know this video was kind of similar to the video I made a couple of weeks ago before the alpha, but hopefully there was some new information there, and let me know what you guys think about the new game. If you learned something new from the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, and let me know in the comments what you think about anything that I've said. Thank you guys for watching.